cranial nerves. My brain's not working today. Not real well.
It's Monday.
Yeah, it's Monday. Yeah, that's Monday. I believe, and I'd hate to go back, I'm like 80% sure I'm right.
I'll go with that.
Okay.
80%.
80, on a good day, it's like 95, so it's a little bit lower.
We're lowballing.
The facial nerve innervates the sublingual and the submandibular, and the glossopharyngeal innervates the parotid. I bet it's in the slides later on, as a matter of fact. The reason I'm mentioning that is because the two types of saliva that these glands produce are a little bit different. Okay, the parotid gland mostly produces serous saliva, okay, the real watery stuff. So this is the guy that gets your oral cavity soaking wet with saliva when you're getting ready to eat. Okay.
I will pee.
Whereas, whoops, I go past it. Whereas the sublingual and the submandibular, they make more of a thick mucoid type saliva. And really nobody knows what the function of the mucoid saliva is. Tried to do a extra credit assignment a few semesters ago where we went and did a literature review to find out if there was anything interesting about it. Really, no. The best we could do is that it seems like mucoid saliva is what you make when you're not having parasympathetic stimulation, which kind of makes sense. Parasympathetic stimulation gets you ready for digestion, so that's the serous saliva that you're going to make. And when you shut that down, which is what you do under intense sympathetic stimulation, you just make mucoid. I suspect there's probably another function to mucoid saliva, but nobody really knows what it is.
Isn't it fighting the bacteria or?
Well, yeah, and that's kind of when I assigned that assignment, I thought we might come up with something like that, but there isn't really any, at least not that I saw in a literature review, any evidence of that. She said maybe it's to prevent, to fight bacteria. In animals, in dogs and cats and things like that, yeah, mucus has strong antibiotic properties, but in humans, not so much. The only thing you can say about mucus, and this is more the serous saliva than it is the mucoid saliva, is it helps wash a lot of the oral bacteria out of the mouth. Okay. Part of why you get really bad breath in the morning when you wake up and you don't have it during the day is that during the day you're producing a lot of saliva, bucket loads of saliva, and that's washing the bacteria out of the mouth down your esophagus and into your stomach. And we're not really aware that we're doing that, but that's keeping the bacteria that grow in the mouth in check. And when you go to sleep, one of the things that you do is that saliva production goes way, way, way down overnight. And so the bacteria overgrow during that period, and that's something, you wake up, you got the gummy mouth, and it doesn't usually taste or smell too good in the morning. And that's why. You're not washing it out of there. Okay. So here they divvy it up a little bit different. They say that they put the submandibular in with the parotid. Really, the submandibular and sublingual, from all the reading I've done, are mostly mucoid, and the parotid is mostly serous. So what do we find in saliva? Well, like I said, it's mostly water. The vast majority of it is water. With a little bit of the protein mucin in it, and that's the sticky proteoglycan there that makes it sticky. You'll find electrolytes in there, so all the good guys: sodium, potassium, chloride, phosphate, and bicarbonate. You also find some digestive enzymes. So amylase. Let's introduce that guy here. Okay, amylase. This would be called salivary amylase.
Oh, it breaks down starch.
Good job. Is she the authority on enzymes?
Microbiology.
Oh, excellent. So you were learning about probably starch hydrolase, right?
Yes.
Yes, that would be with the starch. So since I got to pick on her now, so which bacteria produces it?
Oh,
Staphylococcus or Bacillus? You want to help?
Bacillus.
Good job. Yep, that's right. So amylase breaks down polysaccharides, and we would call that starch. Okay, starch. Starch hydrolysis is what amylase does. And it breaks starch down. Starch is a huge polysaccharide, which has, can have upwards of 60 to 70,000 glucose molecules in it, maybe even more than that. Okay, you can't absorb that. So in order to absorb that, you gotta break it down into small, what are called oligosaccharides that are between 3 and 8 long. Okay, to let some of your other digestive enzymes break it down. You actually start doing this in the mouth. Okay, that's the beginning of what we call chemical digestion. There's usually a test question that asks, where does chemical digestion begin? So the answer to that would be the mouth. Okay, in the mouth, as a result of the action of salivary amylase. Now, food doesn't hang out in the mouth very long. Okay,
Not in my mouth.
Mom and grandma told us to chew your food. What's 20 times, 40 times? I forget. Varies from I guess person to person. Chew your food before you swallow it, right? You hear that? Well, if you can do it, it's actually a really good thing to do. I can tell you a couple things it does for you. One, you'll digest it better because you'll mix it with the saliva better. You'll get more amylase in there, and that primes digestion for what comes later. Two, there's actually some antimicrobial activity that happens in the mouth, and so the food will be healthier for you the more you chew it. And then you also start to absorb some metabolites in the stomach. When you'll absorb more of that in the stomach, the more digestion you've done of the food by the time it gets there. And it can actually, how do I phrase this? It can speed up the process by which your brain knows it's eaten food. Okay, so it'll start to make the satiety center of the brain happy. And so that'll slow down how much you eat. So chewing your food thoroughly can actually lower the Western tendency to overeat. Okay, which Americans like to eat a lot and eat it quickly. And, one of the things you encounter when you go travel a little bit is portion sizes in other countries. You're like, okay, so there's the appetizer, where's dinner? No, that's it. It's, oh, really? Okay. So you go to like the places like the cruise ship stop and stuff like that, and they have their American portions and then they have their normal portions. So when the Americans show up, they serve the American portions. It's a going joke, but that's kind of curious. Some of the things you find out when you meet people from other countries and they tell you all this stuff, and you're like, oh, nice to know. Okay, so amylase starts to break down starch. That's the only meaningful digestion, chemical digestion that happens in the mouth. Okay. Now it lists lipase here, and we can also put lysozyme in this list. So if you've taken notes, in addition to amylase and lipase, we can also put something called, oh, there it is, lysozyme down there. Okay, lysozyme. Well, lipase breaks down triglycerides, and lysozyme can digest simple sugars. So those are digestive enzymes too, but it's not really thought that they're here to do digestion. These probably have antimicrobial properties, okay? You'll learn there's two basic classes of bacteria. They're called gram-negative and gram-positive. The bacteria don't care whether they're pink or blue. That's not really the point. The point is gram-negative bacteria have a lipid envelope around them, and gram-positive bacteria don't. They have a big sugar crust made out of peptidoglycan. Well, lipase can effectively rupture the lipid envelope of gram-negative bacteria, and lysozyme can weaken the cell wall of gram-positive bacteria. So these are antimicrobial secretions that are in the mouth. So that we can help fight off the main portal of entry of bacteria into our body is our digestive tract. So we think that's why that's there. I really don't know why urea and uric acid are secreted into the saliva, whether it's the effect that it has on the pH or not, I really don't know. But some people have a metabolic disorder where they have too much ammonia waste in their blood, and you can detect this. Their breath will smell like ammonia, dragon breath, things like that. That usually is an indicator of an underlying metabolic disorder with their ammonia secretion. Then lastly, in the saliva, we also have some other antimicrobial proteins. IgA here, that's a type of antibody. That's an immunoglobulin. I think I just briefly introduced the idea of immunoglobulins when we talked about blood typing, right? Talking about antibodies. I think I told you there were 5 classes at that time. I mentioned there were 5 classes. The type that is in your bloodstream is mostly something called IgG, immunoglobulin G. But this one, IgA, is actually the one your body produces the most of. by mass. But there's almost no IgA in your bloodstream. It's almost all in on your mucous membranes. So, what would it bind to? Well, it would bind to things like bacteria and viruses that you had encountered before. And so it would prevent their entry. This is part of why you don't get infected by things that you've been infected by before, previously. Defensins are small proteins that can drill holes in bacterial cell walls. So it's another antimicrobial secretion. And then I have absolutely no idea why cyanide is in
No,
there.
I know.
So,
I'm
no idea. Other than that, maybe another nitrogenous waste. I couldn't tell you what cyanide does in there. It's got to be very, very small amounts. So look at this. All right, look how much saliva you produce a day. 1.5 liters. 1.5 liters of saliva every single day. So think about a 2-liter bottle. That's pretty tremendous. Obviously, it's mostly water, so just like mucus, you're going to reabsorb the vast majority of this. Okay. All right, I mentioned that it's parasympathetic that stimulates it. You don't need to know the name of the nuclei in the brainstem. It's called the salivatory nuclei. And then this is what I was mentioning here. Strong sympathetic stimulation, of course, is the antagonist to parasympathetic, so that shuts down saliva production. It doesn't make dry mouth. Okay. Fancy name for dry mouth is xerostomia. Okay. If you want to sound really smart, just use that term sometime. I've almost never had. Has anybody ever had a really strong episode of dry mouth?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what condition caused that? Just out of curiosity.
Smoking?
Certainly wasn't when you're getting ready to eat, right?
No, definitely not.
Okay. Yeah, right. So, I never really experienced this. Then I was working at the Cleveland Clinic, and I got in a fight with my boss, and it was probably the only time I'd ever had that kind of thing happen at work. It wasn't, like a knockdown, drag 'em out kind of fight, but he was just basically being a badgering jerk, and I'd had enough of it, and in science, you'll find out, if you go into science, you're sort of a slave, you get your training, and, you work for a little while, and then, but by the time you get any good, they don't want to let you go, because now you're producing a lot and you're really cheap, so they kind of want to keep you prisoner for as long as possible. Well, if you're an international student or an international postdoc, things like that, frequently your PI, the principal investigator in the lab, controls the strings of your visa. Okay, and if you want to stay in the country, you have to get your visa renewed, and you'll pretty much do whatever they tell you to do. Well, I'm an American, and I wasn't going to play that game, so he was, doing some different things, and I said, no, I'm not doing that. For $31,000 a year, I'm not doing that, and so we didn't see eye to eye about that. But that's probably the most upset I've ever been with somebody in a professional setting. And I'm sitting there having this conversation, and I cursed it. My mouth might as well have turned to super glue. I mean, it was just, I was like, I couldn't even get my lips apart. I had to excuse myself, go in the other room and get a drink of water just so I could continue the conversation. So that memory really stands out for me as something that I experienced that. And so you mentioned nervousness. Yeah, anger, nervousness, extreme sympathetic stimulation is gonna give you an episode of dry mouth. That's the one and only time in my life I've ever experienced that.
Yeah, that's why people drink water when they speech.
At least bi-weekly.
Well, sure, that makes sense. Yeah, if you're giving a speech or something like that, obviously that's, no matter how comfortable you are with public speaking, that's a little stressful. So, yeah, I would explain that.
Yeah. Make sure this is-
Okay, so teeth, like I said, we're gonna skip those. Lots of tooth stuff. Okay, skip all the tooth stuff.